Hi, this is Kathy with City Farmhouse Studio. And whenever I started making garments, one of the first things that I really started researching on my own was how to do seams for garments, especially in knitting, all your different stitch structures, whether you're seaming from side to side, the two ends front to top, and just how you make all of those different joins work for you in your sweater or knit top. So on a top where you make a front panel, a back panel, and then sleeves, I always start joining the shoulders together. And why I do that is so that then you get the correct amount of what you need to join your sleeves into. So I always join front as you would with what will be worn out, so what you will see as you're wearing it, together. And I am right-handed, so I start with the seam, and I have a tapestry needle with one of the ends of how I made the sweater already threaded onto the needle. And what I'm going to do is go from the outside through the first stitch, okay, and then I'm going to go back to that first side where the thread is coming from and redo that first stitch as well. Now I'm going to go from, I always insert from the top of the surface, what is the good surface. I'm going to go around the first stitch. And into the hole where I had originally come out, and around the next stitch on that side. Then as you give it a little tug, it'll pull those sides together, and the seam will start to form on the inside. I like doing this way because then as I am working, I can really see which stitches I am going into. I can also see that as it is pulling together, it is forming the join that I prefer. And you keep on working down. This is a garter stitch, so it's fairly easy to see. You know, you do the first garter row, and then you do on this side the garter row. And then as you work around, you just kind of keep pulling it tight. So now I am on to where I made stockinette. So I want to go through how the stockinette creates the two columns of stitches to form the heart shape. I want to loop through that first set. Come to this side. And as I bound off, it twisted this first side. It kind of pulled it tight. So I want to go through that one. And then I go into where I had originally came out, go through the next two columns, again, bound off, it twisted it. And just every so many times you pull through to tighten it. Go to the next two. And you continue this all the way down. And this pattern actually has a decrease on the shoulder edge to give a shoulder slope. So you continue just working into that next loop edge. So there you can see I had a decrease, so there's a little bit of a bunch. So I still only have 2 loops going through my needle. There you can start to see it join together. So there you have the shoulder seam joined. This does create a thinner type of seam on the inside. However, it is still a seam. It gives enough structure on the shoulder so your sleeve doesn't start stretching out of shape as it hangs on your shoulder. And then you can either go ahead and weave in this end or use it to help sew portions of your sleeve onto that edge, which I'm going to leave it undone in case I need to do that. Now for this pattern, it does call for a set-in sleeve. So what you do is you take the corner that starts the bind off. So you have the strip that will form the length of the sleeve, and then you bind off. This is what goes under your arm. So you want to find that corner and take either a stitch marker, and I use just very small safety pins, and you want to pick up that corner stitch. Then on your garment, you go and find that corner stitch from the bind offs, and I want to pick that one up. So that's one end. You do it to the exact same on the other end. And again, I have the outside fabric that will be worn outside facing me so I can see what it looks like. In hand sewing, you always put right sides together, and I've done that, and then I had to redo seams because I didn't like the look of it because I was looking from the inside. And then I had, knowing this pattern, I have an even number of bind off stitches for the center of the sleeve. So I just fold it in half, or you can count to find the center portion of the sleeve cap. And I know it will go right in the center portion of the seam. So with this complex shape of a bell, you're going to want to kind of just, with your fingers, line everything up and see how much you need to fit in. Sometimes you have a little less on one, sometimes you have a little more on the other. If you need to scooch it, so I need to with the edges rolling, it doesn't help either in cat fur. So that kind of looks like it would lay around even around the edges. So I'm going to put another pin in there. And just for help, I divide each of those into smaller chunks because it's easier to make sure you get things a little more even before you get to the midway point and you end up having way more than you thought left that you need to work in. So it just guarantees things will lay flat. So you just kind of worked where it will lay even. Sometimes you need to, if the outside is, you have more stitches, you can kind of curl this way. Or if the sleeve cap would have more. You curl it that way and it'll even out the material that is used, so you can get it to lay more even and know they're equal between the two sections. So that is how I set up I would go ahead and do for the other side as well, but that's how I would start setting up for how I need to mark for setting in a sleeve to seam. Now, if your sweater just had straight edges on the sleeve and on the garment, it'll usually either have you mark or note where the sleeve will start on both front and back, and then you just line that straight edge of the sleeve in between those two marks. And then you would go ahead and hem a very similar way as well. Be as even as you can. But also remember, this is knit. Knit has give. You are not working with a woven fabric that will not stretch. So if there is some that bunches or pulls, you have give and you do have some forgiveness. Whereas if it was a non-woven, like a work shirt, business shirt, you wouldn't be able to you would see any imperfections. So since on this panel I did not have any ends right at that corner to start to use, I'm going to go ahead and use the middle portion again. Thread your blunt eye needle or tapestry needle. And where I saw that middle stitch, I'm going to go around the two stitches, the two loops that form that one stitch. So I find the edge stitch, that heart, or the two strands that form the first stitch. And I want to go and pick up the bar of the next, between that row of stitches and the next, and pull that through. And then again, still with the right side facing me, I want to go into the next two loops, the next bar, now, because I am joining rows to columns, our gauge of stitches is different to rows. So I cannot continue with doing one column to one row. It won't even out even. So now that I've started, I'm going to want to start, I'll still do, see where I pulled through. The column, one row of columns, I had a bind off there so it goes at an angle. But sometimes you're going to need to pick up two bars. So there's the edge stitch. I'm picking up the two bars in between to the next row or column. You just kind of keep working back and forth, keeping an eye to this being held and looking at the material left. Are you going too fast on one side, or is it staying fairly even? If it is looking uneven, go ahead and pull those stitches out, redo it. You don't want to waste all that work you've done working on your sweater, and then on one of the last steps you rush, and then you don't like the results. And just like we did on the shoulder, every few stitches that you've made, pull it tight. I am using a cotton linen thread, and it does seem to have a little more friction than like an acrylic blend or even some wools. So I definitely do not want to wait too long before I tighten. So there you can start to see how it's going to join in together. So once you've done the sleeve and the neckline, you're going to want to start working on the garment sides. And this goes through the garment sides and also under the arms for your sleeves as well. You can start at the sleeve cuff or go ahead and start at the sleeve bottom. It begins very similar to all the other ones. I have a little strand here left from casting on that I will start. If you don't have any strands, just take some leftover bits of yarn and use that. Or you can work from, if you had something from on up that has enough to give you length to work on down. So again, this started with the cast on. So I'll go through the one cast on to the other and one stitch, working from inside the front side of the fabric and around to the back and then back out the front. That way, when I pull them, the join will be on the inside of the fabric. And just as we are doing the bar to stitches, you do bar to bar if they are of equal lengths. If you need to get two dimensions, two different lengths to fit, you may need to go a different amount between the two. So just like before, I'm finding that row of stitches, that edge first stitch, going in and finding the bar, finding the edge first stitch, and finding the bar. And just continue working up, going in. You can see here's where I went in before, going in, just grabbing that one bar in between where I came out, picking up a loop, one of those bars, and then every so many stitches, just pull it tight. You'll get your seam on the inside, and you can visually see how you're doing on the front face of the fabric to know if that's how you like it or not. You continue on, and eventually you can get a nice seam. Where I had some decreases in my pattern, they do mark, but nothing, but it's just where the stitches come in and join. And there you go. I hope this helped you learn how to seam for your first sweater. If you have a different way that you like, let me know what you think, or if there's a seam that you don't like, let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe so you never miss out on any other tutorials or patterns from City Farmhouse Studio. Thanks again for watching. Bye.